This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hi, I'm David.
I'm Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series.
So we have a very exciting episode for you today.
Very exciting.
So we've noticed that a lot of the 35 episodes that we put out, well, this is the 35th episode, but the 34 previous episode we put out, a lot of it has been about us delivering content, what we've learned, what we've understood about dating and life, and sharing with you what's really worked for us. And so what we want to share with you today is, where are David and I in respect to relationships, dating, life, being men, and from a point of view of like really helping you understand what it is to be successful in dating and what it can look like, what it is and what it isn't. And I think there's a lot of confusion or not confusion, assumptions. There's a lot of assumptions about what it is to be successful and how it must look and how wonderful and everything once you get this part of your life sorted. So we just want to shed some light for us from our own perspective and what we've experienced. And as always, this is our experience, and it's not foretelling of your experience, but it will give you some awareness as to, how things unfold and kind of what other challenges come up.
Cool. So a bit of an intro to our podcast. If you're a first time listener, you're not going to know who we are, what we talk about, but our podcast really is about showing how for men, you can create a dating life that, you love by just being your authentic self and not feeling like you have to be like someone else, instead of just being how you want to be and taking on traits of other people because that's what you think you should be doing or the ways you shouldn't be in life. Because there's a lot of talk about how you should be and how you shouldn't be and how you should be acting, how you shouldn't. And we feel that that's not really how we've lived and got to where we've got to in life. And the other guys and that we know have been very successful in dating and life have learned to just be themselves and enjoy themselves and accept themselves as they are. Because again, we believe that we have all the natural tools available to us inherently to kind of be successful in life. And what we often do as people is we kind of put layers on top of that mask who we are. And in fact, that's what kind of blocks us from actually living truly into who we are and how we want to be in the world.
Beautiful. Really nice. And so the other bit of news, actually, that comes to my mind.
Drum roll for the news.
Yeah, there's a bit of a really important, and especially, if you've just joined us, as Dave said, for our first time listeners, but a bit of news. So we've been going now for almost 9 months, if not 9 months.
We could have had children in that time.
Yeah, we could have had birthed our own, well, not me and Dave together.
No.
We'd need a female counterpart at least,
one.
in the 9 months. Yeah, but instead of having a child, what we've done is we've produced. This is now our 35th episode of the podcast. So yeah, our news is that what we've decided to do is actually wind down and call in the next few weeks. Call this the end of season 1.
That's the end of season 1.
Yeah, end of season 1. Yeah,
could be like Stranger
of the
Things.
Authentic Dating series. I mean, when we started this, we basically just started. we started sharing, and each week we've created different topics and come up with things that either people had asked us or we felt was really important and pertinent for us to share with you guys and with you, especially our listener. And yeah, so now we're deciding to take a step back and review what we've created, and then for season 2 to really relaunch with I feel like it's like a rebirth, a review and a rebirth of the podcast to really take into account what we've learned, our experiences, what people want to know, where everyone's at, and really make this something special for season 2.
Yeah, and know where you're at as listeners and what you're kind of wanting to know more about or less about, or maybe some completely new types of topics and stuff. We've got some decisions about, where we take this and what it's going to look like and stuff like that. But do not fear, do not worry. We will be definitely back with season 2.
Yeah. And the thing is, actually, just to give you some certainty about that, we've already recorded one amazing episode with a very special guest, which we'll be using for season 2. So, don't disappear. We are still here and we will be back. And we've actually got another very special guest that we're going to record with tomorrow. So we're very excited about the relaunch because, we're coming out with a reinvigorated energy for what we're doing. And the reason I say reinvigorated, it's not like what we've done now isn't good. It's more like what we've created so far has allowed us to really understand what our value is and what you want to hear from us, and how to do that in the best way possible.
Exactly that. So I guess, as Ahmad said, this episode we're going to kind of talk about our lives and like where we're at in life and what we're dealing with, and there'll be like obviously some kind of tidbits of knowledge that come out of that for you guys to listen to and implement and what's so in your lives. But this is just us kind of just sharing vulnerably where we are in life, really, and what's going on for us. And for two men who have lived on this earth for 35 years and been reasonably successful in the things that we've undertaken, where we become at, because, no matter where you get to in life, there's always problems. Your problems are just new problems and different types of problems. So, yeah. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Where are we going to start? There's a dog outside barking.
Yeah. Dogs. That's where we want to start.
Yeah.
So where are we at? So for me, one of the things I haven't actually mentioned yet in the previous podcast is I'm actually now engaged.
Woo!
Yeah. And what a long fucking journey it has been from the stiff character that I once was to being more malleable in society, to being more grounded in who I am, and
being engaged,
and then getting engaged along the way.
I was saying to someone recently, actually a couple of nights ago, a friend of ours, I was saying to her, and I was like 10 years ago when we kind of really first started hanging out, I was like, AJ was a very different character. The things we would sit and talk about on this same very sofa that sits in front of us now, in this very room that we'd probably be sitting in
the studio.
In the studio.
Before
in
it
the
was
studio.
The studio. Before it was a studio. Yeah.
We're like very different to the sort of things we talk about now. Like I remember it'd be like, you'd be like, man, it just stuff about like maybe approaching girls, talking to girls in bars. Like that's the sort of shit we were dealing with.
Yeah. I would always run today with my like top female dilemmas. I was fucking clueless, right? So I'm just saying that's a fact. I was fucking clueless, and so if in case you didn't know, that's where I was, and I genuinely. It was a bit like the easiest way for you to understand this as a listener is like it was a bit like females were Spanish and I didn't speak any Spanish, and so then I would always, and Dave was a prolific Spanish speaker, and so Dave would always translate for me.
Hola.
Yeah. ¿Qué pasó? Yeah, and Dave would always translate for me like what was happening, why this happened. Like, for example, if I was like, I went on a date and she said this and then I said that and then I think she got offended, and then Dave was like, so basically, you cussed her off. So, and that became actually a running theme for me, I think, in general. To where I am today, where there was a definite point, and I wouldn't say it was like halfway through or definitely not early on either, but there was a definite point in my journey where I actually realized the importance of being able to answer my own questions. And that was it wasn't even something that I didn't come to Dave and Dave, I've now decided we will end this agreement. No, there was a point, maybe only like in the last 4 or 5 years, I have to say, where it's obvious that I was like, I need to be able to rely upon my own instincts and awareness. And obviously I'd garnered my own experience in that time as well. Right. And yes, set off in my own direction. Be my own man is basically what I'm saying. And that actually, we didn't write this in the notes, but this is an interesting point, and I think it's a very powerful one. And I have actually advised people that I've coached in the past. I've actually advised the same thing of them. I've said, after a certain time, there's like, because it's kind of like a habit that people can get into where it's like, oh, I'm not ready, or I don't know enough. And there's always someone that we look up to and say, this person knows better or more, and so I always need to rely upon them.
King Ladu.
Yeah, King Ladu. Yeah, I think we need to make T-shirts. We have our own mascot, King Ladu. We're trying to get a sponsorship with Umbala. Yeah. So, it's just, by the way, Ladu is a sweet for anyone who didn't know.
Indian sweet.
Yeah. We have a joke about there being like a deity.
If you want to know about this, you have to DM us. It's not something we're going to share on air.
Yeah, but essentially, someone you can praise. So where was I? Yeah. So the importance of getting to that point where you're able to understand things for yourself and answer your own questions. And I will throw a disclaimer in there as well. This is not to say that you're never having to ask other people for advice or never asking questions. It's more to say you're getting to a point where you're like, it's a bit like when you're riding a bike and you take the training wheels off. Actually, it's nothing like that at all, is it? Like, once you take the training wheels off, you just ride. It's just
right.
Like,
but you still fall off sometimes.
Yeah. But it's like, what my point was, like, you don't get someone to come and kind of like hold the bike from time to time. It's like, so it's a bad example. But my point is like, what my point was actually was that you get to a point where you can listen to someone else's advice and still take your own decision. Because it's a bit like a computer that then takes information rather than just passing it straight through and going, that's the inevitable outcome. You're like, okay, this is what, let's say David was giving me some example, like girls like strawberry ice cream. All girls like strawberry ice cream. By the way, this is just an example. This is not a fact. And then I say, and instead of how I used to be like, oh, all girls must like strawberry. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what David's saying. Now, how do I think and feel about that? And what are my actions that I'm going to take?
What is my experience telling me?
Yeah.
What have I observed in the world now? I kind of call it, not that example, but this phase of life is like generating your own wisdom. Because we spend a lot of time, I think we grow up, especially as young kids, you know, especially when you're very young, you're getting all your knowledge from other people. Like, how is the world? How am I meant to be from your parents, whatever. And there's a point where you start to think, oh, I can think for myself. But even in this area, you've just swapped your parents for like your friends, your peers, television, whatever media is around you. And I think there comes a point in a person's life that should come, and it doesn't really matter about age when this happens, but you should be generating your own wisdom. Like, you're like, okay, I want to go on holiday. Where do I want to go? Not saying, where do I want to go on holiday? Let me ask my friends and then they'll tell me where I should go.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, for my personal life journey, that has been a huge, like, let's say, theme. If my life was a movie, that's definitely been a huge theme. A bit like Gladiator in his story, like he had to go from being a gladiator from being a captain to a slave to a gladiator to rising up again, right? My story has been more like find my own authority, like finding my own authority. And as I say that, I'm actually acknowledging that nowadays there's so many people that think they live in independence and their own authority, when in fact there's so many parameters that they live by still that aren't really theirs. And I've been reading a lot about Elon Musk recently and why he's so effective. It's because he really runs on his own, like his own rules. He's not, he's at a level where he's able to compute with clarity like what he wants and what he's capable of, not going, oh, this is what I want because someone else told me, and this is what I can do because this is what someone else told me. He's very scientific. It's basically what it comes down to.
It creates a level of limitlessness as well.
Well,
because you could be limited by other people's ideas.
Well, you actually start to learn your own limits. So rather than limitless, it's kind of like you're investigating what's true from your own point of view. So going back to my where I'm at today and getting engaged and all these things, like finding my own authority was a huge part of that, because before I would always be like, oh, you know, what would my parents want for me? What would they think? What would my family want? What would they think? And then even my friends, as David said, like then at some point it stops being the parents and we can all do this, right? And even you, the listener, is start to project the authority figure as either the police authority or your boss at work or your friend that you really admire or such and such guru that you've seen saying this and that on YouTube or wherever you watch your gurus. And yeah, so getting to the point now where I'm like engaged and in this process, it's like, well, I had to really shed a lot of that worry and concern about what other people want from me and what other people think and what's okay and good for me to do. And like it's like even to the point of actually proposing, like Chloe was completely taken by surprise. She wasn't expecting me to propose for at least another like half a year or more, right? It was nowhere. The fact that I did it completely was just like I changed. I was like in my own way. I was like, boom, it's time for me. Like this is what I'm doing. And of course, I was very happy about it. But yeah. So that's a little bit about me. I think, is there anything else I want to say about that right now? Oh yeah, I will say it. So, but at the same time, actually, so because a lot of people have asked me in the past, how did I go from being someone who was very nervous around women and very stuck to having a relationship, living with my girlfriend, or now being engaged, and like how did I go through all of that? And obviously there was a like 10 plus years of like hard focus. I was going to say hard work. It's not really work. It's just like a relentless focus in wanting to improve this area of my life. Not saying I was constantly doing like a 9-to-5 job, but over the years, just always being like, I really want to like make a difference here in my own life. But then at the same time, it's like I haven't now emerged at a level of perfection that things are like so easy and wonderful and everything's sorted. Like sadly for me, what I discovered is that there is no utopia. Is it utopia? There's no like nirvana. There's no nirvana space. You just it's actually now I'm in a whole other chapter of my life and figuring things out. I mean, I started this chapter a while ago and I got into a relationship, and that chapter is like, how do I function inside of a relationship? And one of the things I said to David before the recording was about how you on Instagram or wherever, like you can see so many platitudes about the things you should and shouldn't do in a relationship. And what I find day to day is like, they don't mean shit, because you need to, again, going back to what we're saying, finding your own authority. You in the moment, you need to be able to understand and be centered and grounded in who you are as a man, as a person, to be able to deal with the fluctuations of life. And that's where I am today. Is like, shit's not perfect everywhere. And me and Chloe, we don't really have massive arguments or anything like that, but we have like differences. I'd have to
disagreements.
Say. Well, no, honestly, I think that one of the great things is we're actually both quite diplomatic in our own way. So the way we converse with each other is very respectful of each other. Not saying that we'd never disagree or have arguments, but it's always very, very chill.
Yeah.
So it's very chill. So, but the thing is what I come to realize is there's so many things that move and shift and whatever, that it's not about reaching a level of perfection, but rather reaching a level of understanding. And that's where I'm at now, and that's actually what I continue to develop. It's not like I'm complete with that either.
And you say understanding, you mean understanding yourself?
Of myself, like where I started off by talking about the wants and desires of other people. Now really starting to understand, like, well, actually, what is it that I want, and how do I want to live, and what do I want to do, and I'm 35 now, and how's the rest of my life look, and all of these things, so really starting to develop that deeper understanding and exploration of self. And that's where I'm at today. And so it's not like perfect. There's still, what was I going to say? Not anxieties, insecurities. There's still insecurities about this, about that. What happens if Chloe and I break up? Here I am talking about it on the podcast, and then maybe tomorrow the whole thing hits a fan, shit hits a fan and stuff, right? But that's what I'm saying is like where I'm at now is an understanding of like I need to be grounded in myself and what I'm doing with my life, and so that I can really give to the relationship as well.
No.
So Dave, what about you?
Since we're talking about relationships, I guess I'm not currently engaged in a relationship.
No,
none
at all. Not even some sort of form of a relationship.
No, I think I'm pretty single right now, from my own accounts.
Pretty single.
Single as one can be. I guess in the last kind of couple of months, especially, I haven't been kind of active in dating. I kind of have been maybe in the last few weeks. I was very focused on kind of podcast activities. You'd be surprised what happens when you try and run a dating podcast and you don't have time to go on any dates anymore. And also just focus on myself and my own time and so forth. But I guess the big thing for me right now around relationships is like, what type of relationship do I really want now? Do I want to have something that's a bit more open? Do I want to have what would be like kind of polyamorous kind of lifestyle? And I think that's kind of the question that comes up for me. Like even some of the dates I've been on, I've been quite honest about that and been like, maybe that's something for me to enter into in life. And like, do I want something completely open? Do I want something that's polyamorous? Is that something I want to do long term? Because, like a lot of you listeners and Ahmad, it's like I have aims of possibly marriage or some sort of maybe committed relationship and having children and so forth. But I see that maybe to a certain degree for me right now and how I'm feeling kind of like right now in these moments, that maybe something more open and polyamorous could kind of work for me. Because
I think so.
Yeah. We've been having this conversation for years. But I have some resistance to it as well, actually.
Yeah.
I'm like, my own insecurities come up, right? Like, I know you as a listener, you might listen to us and think that we sound like we're in pretty good shape, but I have my own insecurities about, if I say that I'm polyamorous now, is there all these women that would be perfect for me that won't want to have anything to do with me? That comes up. Or how will people view my actions if I'm polyamorous?
It's like coming out there. It's like,
yeah.
I'm coming out.
I'm coming out of polyamorous.
Out the poly closet.
Yeah. Like, what does that even look like for me? How would my life be? Do I have time to have multiple relationships, really? Do I have the energy to do that? Like, maybe I'll meet someone next week and I just want to be with them. Like, but then...
I don't think so. That's not been my experience with you, Dave.
But equally, it's like, it's my life. I can live by my own rules. It's something it's easy to forget. Like, I don't have to live a life in a certain way. So me right now, I think that's, from a relationship point of view, that's kind of the question that I'm answering. And I'm kind of putting it out to the universe and going, okay, seeing what comes back for me.
Oh, King Laddu.
King Laddu. Bless me.
Well, in my reflection, Dave said we often talk about these things. And I've often said to David, like, it's clear to me that it's definitely an area of exploration. And I'm really glad you brought it up, because it's like so many people get bogged down with like the need to and must haves and shoulds and shouldn'ts. And then there's a frustration.
Yeah.
And sometimes sure, it's unfounded, right? Some people, they just want to itch like an addiction or something, right? And they just, I need to do this, I need to go do this. But then other times it's like, well, unless you give yourself the freedom to really go, okay, yeah, I'm gonna experiment, I'm gonna try this out, I'm gonna see how it fits, then you don't actually know. And then what are you running from?
Yeah.
And when I mean running from, I mean, what are you operating on?
Yeah.
Like, what's the basis of that decision? Because it's definitely not your own.
Yeah. Yes. It's some sort of other decision that's kind of been put on you from elsewhere. Like
societal, as you're saying.
Yeah. Like, I feel like, when it comes to kind of feelings and relationships, like, it's quite comfortable for me to be seeing multiple women and enjoy that, and then them enjoy spending time with me, and me feeling quite free in that as well. And it's something I've done quite a lot over the years. And yeah, so I think maybe it's a phase that I'm going to kind of enter into. And again, it's very much like, the question is like, to do it or not do it, It's like, and then there's also, like I said before, there's kind of concerns and worries and fears that I have about myself and the world, and how the world will look at me kind of living that way. And, whether it's something, will it be a mistake? Will it be right? Will it be wrong? And equally on that, I say all this and I go, well, I know that there's nothing wrong.
Yeah. And it's quite funny hearing you say that, because, to be honest, like, you've pretty much existed in that world without branding yourself in that particular way.
Yeah.
So that's it's interesting how your mind is still kind of like, there's some, essentially what's obvious is your mind is like, there's something wrong about this.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I think there's that kind of, I think there's a few things. I think, to be honest, it's like just being seen as, are you just trying to just, have your cake and eat it? I think that's something that's been said to me before.
I've never understood that phrase. I mean, if it's my cake, I should eat it. Like, genuinely, it's one of those like life questions. Like, what does it mean
to have your cake and eat it?
Why can't I have my own
Apparently,
cake?
from watching a series called The Unabomber, which is an amazing series on Netflix, it's actually meant to be the other way around. It's meant to be to eat your cake and have it. Because how could you eat your cake and then still have the cake?
I mean, that's just semantics, though, isn't it? Why are they like, I had the cake already? Why are you questioning me about a cake I've already eaten? It's past tense. It's caked.
It's caked.
It's no longer cake. It was caked.
Yeah. So yes, I think that's something that I'm doing my best as well in kind of when I meet women now and date, is to say, this is the space that I'm existing in, because, I'm not saying there's any hard or fast direction I'm definitely going to go. I think a lot of it will be dictated by how do my feelings move, I might meet someone and be like, oh wow, I just want to be with this one person for the rest of my life. But equally, I could meet many people and be like, well, I want to be with all of you.
Well, I was gonna say something. That line caught me. Yeah, I want to be all of these. Because the other thing that comes up, and and I'm not saying this is the thing or whatever, but what crosses my mind as well, it could be the case, right? For some, especially for some people who are looking at this path, it's like, am I just afraid of commitment?
Yeah,
and I'm not, and I don't mean that in any disrespectful way to anyone who believes in polyamory or practices poly. I don't know what the correct verbiage
polyamorous
is. Yeah, because the other thing as well, for like what crosses my mind when you were talking is something that I had to contend with for a long while, which especially in a non-self-authoritative stage of my life, where it's like, oh, this is what other men are doing. This is what it is to be a man. So it's to be a man, you should be seeing multiple different women, or you should be having that freedom.
Yeah.
And then what I later discovered, because like for me personally, and again, it could be my own emotional dysfunction, but for me personally, it doesn't work to be in that. Like emotionally, I'm just like, damn, like I feel hurt. I feel this, I feel for that. And I've read stuff about polyamory, and I understand that this is exactly what some of these people go through. But also, they also seem to not enjoy necessarily, but they have a driver to continue to pursue it regardless of those things. Whereas for me, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm good not doing that. And in contrast to David, I was always a bit more like, man, this is a lot of work. Like, to see multiple girls, to keep up with that, with the emotional, not necessarily turmoil, but like imbalance.
There is turmoil, right? So, if you're seeing someone and they sleep with someone else, or they're sleeping with other people and they talk to you about it, then there's some emotions come up for you, right?
Yeah. But also from the women, right? If they get upset, which could, I was going to say inevitably happen, but it can happen quite frequently if you're seeing multiple women and one, being upset, and then you have to be with that. You could choose to run away, but we don't. This is the authentic dating series.
Yeah,
where you say, you be with that and you go for it. But then for me, that wasn't an exercise that I want to continue to experience in my life. I think I experienced that a few times, and I was like, nah, I'm kind of good, and equally, I balanced what I've just said out with the idea that potentially for me, I have a dysfunction around not being free in that area, right? But then, like where I'm at today is like, well, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Like I'm cool with the choices that I've made and where I'm at. Whereas in the past, there was almost like a taint on me if I was not the same as everyone else. If I, just as stupid as like if I didn't have the same trainers as someone else, as everyone in school. So that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get someone on the episode on the podcast who is maybe like even more experienced in living a polyamorous life.
We met that guy recently, but I don't think he's
I know someone actually who I've spoken to her about coming on. And if there's any listeners out there and it's something that you've lived in for a while and have experience and give us some insights, it'd be great if you want to contact us actually and maybe come on the podcast for season 2. I think polyamory is something that's really growing in popularity in these days. So I think maybe we're just seeing that this whole one-to-one relationship thing, this was kind of put in place by society and religion, and maybe it doesn't really work anymore for people. Now there exists a choice to go, well, I don't want to do that, I want to do something else. So yeah, I think that'd be a really interesting topic to give a whole episode to. Cool. Yeah, I think feel quite complete on that one. What are we going to talk about next? What else? I guess I'm looking at this episode as like relationships, work, emotional well-being.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously sticking to the confines of relationships, but what everything impacts relationships. So, like work-wise and what you're doing, like I mentioned, like I've been with Chloe now for almost 2 years, and the interesting thing about getting into a relationship is, again, rewind back to when I was really like shy of girls and women and stuff, and like it was almost like a trophy type thing, a prestige, a level to attain, to be in a relationship and to be like, yeah, I made it. Like, to be someone who's struggling to talk to women to actually being in a relationship, and to now be engaged and stuff. It's like, wow. Right. But yeah, life itself comes with its own challenges, and that naturally impacts, your relationship, no matter where you are, what you're doing, or what level you're at. It doesn't matter how much money you got. There's like Dave briefly said earlier, like there's always another problem.
Yeah.
There's always another challenge, whatever you want to, or however you want to frame it. There's always something else that's there. That's your focus. That's like this whole idea of like work-life balance or whatever. People realizing that very hard to obtain a balance. It's all you're constantly shifting the weight from one foot to the other, and and just moving. It's all very fluid. So yeah, like work wise, and like, so being, for me, like, let's just talk about me. So for me at the moment, like being in a relationship and what my aspirations are for work, like I'm 35. I feel like I'm only now just really starting to get into my creative mode of what is it I want to do here with my time. The podcast being a definite platform for how I want to spend my time, how I want to contribute to the human race, and also how I want to create and what I want to do. So that naturally takes up time. Like, people don't realize how much time it takes to create this, let alone just record. Like Dave and I, just to meet up and record one like 40-minute session can take us up to 3 hours, depending on what what the topic is and what prep we've done beforehand. And then also there's the social media side and putting the time into that, on top of other things that I'm doing. Like I'm involved in my family business, and it's a business. So it's not like I'm just doing a 9-to-5 job, clock in, clock out, no, there's always different things and more things. And I had to learn how to like manage to-do lists really well recently. And that's, even learning that has been an additional thing to do. And obviously all of that stuff impacts my relationship, how much time I'm spending with Chloe, what we're doing. Am I spending too much time focused on work? Am I making enough time to really be with her? Am I actually present to her when I'm with her? It's not enough just to physically be in the same room. Yeah. It's like to actually be present and engaged and aware. And I have to say, like, these are not things that I've always got in check or in balance.
It's one of those things, being present. Like I kind of speak to various people about this recently, and it's like actually the importance of, when you're with someone, actually being present with them is to a certain degree giving them your attention, and being there instead of kind of, we could be sitting here together and we're constantly checking our phones, thinking about what we need to do later, thinking about what we did earlier and stuff like that. And that's not really being present with someone. And they can really feel a difference when two people are like present with each other and like they're engaged, conversating, or sometimes just even in silence, but you're there actually present in that moment of what's going on.
Yeah. And for me, where I'm at currently, especially with like essentially entering into a phase of my life where I'm creating a lot more new things, there's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. Like with the podcast, where we're at, we had certain aspirations and goals, and like where are we in relation to that, and how are we gonna, well, we haven't hit some of them, and some we've we've created new things, and it's like, okay, what was the focus? And then also planning a wedding and all of these things, and so it's like being able to, well, not being able to anything, where I'm currently at is that's where I'm at, right? Like in that space of having to learn, and not just learn, but engage and continue. Yeah. Like life doesn't stop. It's like, so what I'm really trying to say here as well is like, whereas some people might be thinking, oh man, I can't wait to be in a relationship or to find the one or to whatever. Like what I'm saying is, man, that's merely just another door to another life that starts another journey. Yeah. It's like, it's a bit like climbing a mountain. If anyone's ever climbed a mountain, or even a smaller hill or whatever, where you get to a certain point and you think you're nearing the top, and then you get to that top bit and you realize there's a whole nother bit that you just couldn't see from where you were before. That's kind of life, isn't it? Basically. Yeah. Because it's like people say, even in the kind of life and relationship space, especially relationships, people are like, oh, when I get a relationship, I'm going to do all these things, right? And I was with a friend recently, and she was saying, I kind of had these visions of, like, if I met someone, we'd like, do up houses together and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of said, no, you better just start doing that now. Because, if you always put things off and say, oh, when I meet the right person, I'm going to go and do X, Y, and Z. Well, that might not happen, because you don't know when it's going to come along. It's like, you need to live your life now, because your life is happening right now, in front of you, on top of you, and around you. It's something that you don't realize. I think we as humans, we're always like, oh, when we get to this place,
I'm gonna feel like this. When what you don't realize is when you get to that place, because you're moving so quickly, you don't even take stock of getting to that place because you're looking further ahead to the next place already.
Yeah, what comes to my mind when you say that is like what a lot of people put on money. For example, they say, "Oh, when I'm a millionaire, I will do this, and this." And actually, I've never actually obtained it, so I can't speak from experience of becoming a millionaire yet. Don't worry, listeners, I will let you know when that day comes. But what I've understood from people in general is that nothing changes.
Yeah.
Like you are who you are. and so unless you've been doing the things that you wanted to be doing, you're not going to start all of a sudden magically start doing things differently. Yeah, of course. Like if you have more money or whatever, like you maybe have more time to spend to spend on things you love doing. But essentially who you are as a character, and this is what came to my mind just as Dave was talking, is like who you are as a character, unless you've been doing these things, like the things you want to be doing, looking into property, hobbies and sports and whatever, not like it's not going to just magically happen because you meet someone and now you've got a partner to do it with. And what really stands out as well, because I was surprised to learn that there's a lot of people that still live in that modality of I'm going to tick off certain boxes. And there's kind of like a feeling that comes with that. Like, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then everything's going to be sorted.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, no, that's not how life works. As Dave said, it's like life is constantly happening. So if you're completely focused on just working and going to like some sort of gym thing, and then your main aspirations in life right now are to buy your own house, but that's all you're doing, and then you're hoping that when you meet someone it's going to be wonderful. Understand that when you meet someone it's going to be basically work, gym, your house, and then that someone.
Yeah.
So what are you bringing to the relationship if you haven't got anything else? And so like in contrast, as much as I may have in the past been feeling like I didn't have interesting things or whatever going on, at this point in my life, like just by being me, without I'm not putting things in a schedule, I'm not planning like crazy, but just by being me, I end up going to certain parties or meeting certain people, or I want to go and spend some time by the seaside or whatever, just by living my life the way and being me and who I love being internally. Then I actually create a very interesting life that I can share.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from is actually living out of your own authority as well. We kind of talked about that earlier, but I can kind of resonate with you saying about living your life out of what you want to do, and that creates an interesting life. And I think this is something, this kind of bring this back to dating a bit, is this old thing about conversation, like, what do I talk about when I'm on dates and then stuff like that. And if you really want to listen to what we think about that, I think it's like episode 5 or 6 where we talk about conversation.
Yeah, it was five key points about conversation.
Yeah, and the thing is we all have conversation, but the reason you don't think you have anything to talk about potentially is because you don't believe anything you're doing is interesting, right? And that comes out of, I think, a lot of the time is where you're not living out of your own authority about what you want to do. Because if your life is basically filled with, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, if your life is filled with going to work, going to the gym and pretty much sleeping and then resting on the weekends, you're not doing really what you want to do. You're really not. You're not actually living. You're just existing. You're existing and staying in reasonably good shape, and probably not in the best shape if you're working that much. So you need to make some lifestyle changes, or you can continue like that, but you're probably not going to be very happy long term. Like the more and more people I speak to, they're not. If you're running your own business, I think sometimes it's a very different kettle of fish. But if you're working for someone else in someone else's business and helping them make more money, the chances are that that's not your thing. You're not that happy about it. And I met someone yesterday, and he spoke really beautifully about how he'd kind of worked up the corporate ladder and really figured out how to keep moving up the corporate ladder, but felt empty, felt like there was something missing. And I reckon a lot of you listeners kind of resonate with this feeling of something missing in life. Where you're doing all the things that you're meant to be doing. Maybe you've got a house, maybe you've got a good job now, maybe that your bank balance is looking a bit more healthy, but you're like, something's a bit missing. And then you're thinking, okay, I'm dating, and maybe the dating's going quite well. I meet nice women or nice men, whatever, and I'm getting into a relationship, but you still feel like there's something missing. And the chances are what's missing actually is that you've designed your life based on what other people think you should be doing.
And as you say that as well, what comes out as glaringly obvious for a lot of guys still is that, if I have all these things, then a woman will want me.
Yeah. And that's, I always joke about this and say how, you can meet some really kind of broke loser guys who get women effortlessly, right? And they have nothing going for them.
Right, that one homeless guy that we mentioned in episodes 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah. Whereas you can meet some guys who are very successful in their business life and work and blah, 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 and they still kind of, that's an area of their life they struggle to kind of fulfill on.
So, I mean, on that point, there was a guy that I spoke to not long ago, and he was saying like he can't believe he's so successful in work, and yet with women he still struggles.
Yeah.
And for him, he literally has done the checkbox thing where he's ticked all these things off, and now he's like, but it doesn't add up. Like, and it's like, it's almost like you're still running on Windows 95 or something. It's like old school where, really what you should move over to is like a Mac.
Yeah, something a bit more flexible.
A lifestyle thing.
Yeah.
But also, just to add to the other thing I was going to say is like, it's an interesting thing you raised, because David, you literally just you were made redundant, a month ago?
Yeah, about a month ago, yeah.
Yeah, and you've gone through that, and you've now recently maybe acquired something else, but it didn't really impact your dating or how you felt about your dating, other than the time that you spent into, he's nodding his head no, but I mean, other than the time you spent into getting a new job, it didn't impact how women found you attractive, or that's what I meant to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. No, it didn't. It's, for me, it was quite an interesting time of life. Like, it's the first time I've ever been made redundant really in this way. And it was like, I was working somewhere that I really put my heart in. I really loved working there, and I still love the company now. And it come of a shock, and it really kind of hit me quite sideways, actually, emotionally. I was just like quite hurt and angry and all those kind of emotions that were just, I was just letting them out and letting them flow through me. It's a really interesting period to observe myself and how I was reacting to things.
What do you mean you let them out and flow through you? What is that?
Well, instead of, sometimes we do a lot of kind of pushing down, suppression of emotion, like, I'm feeling angry, I shouldn't be angry. And especially, I think I felt this in a lot of my life, and I imagine some of the listeners do, is like, we live in society now where it's very frowned upon to display anger.
Oh, yeah.
You shouldn't be angry. And I think as a black man as well, I'm doubly aware of this. Like, not to be angry, because I don't want to be an angry black man, because that's how the media portrayed black people for 200 years, basically. Right. So I'm very aware of not doing that. But actually, I'm now a lot more comfortable being like, I'm angry. And I'm not kind of in that half-hearted way, but, I learned some techniques around kind of letting emotion out through just like screaming. And like screaming into pillows and making noise and sounding it out, because we don't do that very often. We don't let our anger go, or maybe you as a listener, you like to go boxing or something like that, and it allows you to let that kind of that emotion out through exercise or hitting things or whatever, right? Like one day I sat here and I was like hitting pillows on my sofa, because I was like, well, this is a perfectly good way for me to let this emotion come out of anger and annoyance. So yes, I've kind of been through that whole emotion over the last, what's it called? Like kind of 3. No, you could just speak it. So yeah, Chloe, as Beyonce has come to the door at the back of the studio. But yeah, so yeah, like losing my job and then having to look for a new one, which is like massively time consuming and energy consuming at that, which has just been like a kind of difficult kind of 4 weeks it's been now. And actually finding jobs and roles and stuff like that, and even though like I'm very good at what I do, it's just time consuming and difficult, and it kind of emotionally is like a real kind of roller coaster to go through. But actually, like I said, it doesn't affect your kind of my dating life has not been affected at all, or my level of attractiveness.
You didn't put as much energy into that.
No, I guess I wasn't putting that much money into it before that, but it was just like I kind of took it as just like part of life. There's this new thing I need to put energy into, and it's important. So I refocused and like put a lot of energy into doing that. And I just did.
Yeah, and I think it really highlights how life happens and in certain ways, or whatever you want to believe. And obviously, you may believe, you've attracted this into your life or whatever. But
I truly do, actually. It's really funny because, I'm kind of having some considerations about the job. Like, is it right for me? And, through some intuition stuff, I was like I need to update my CV and blah, blah, blah. And then the redundancy happened. And it's like, well, look at me. Look at universe just gave me what I asked for, right? I wanted like a new job and I was forced to find a new job. So,
okay. Yeah. So but there you go. That's a great example, right? Of like life and being essentially, I mean, Dave didn't mention it, but essentially being very grounded in what it is that you're about, how life can be, what's happening, and not feeling like, oh no,
poor me.
What are people going to think about me?
Yeah.
Especially, I feel like the word redundant. I mean, maybe it's been.
I know. I really thought about this. Redundancy. The word redundancy is like redundant. That's deep.
Redundant.
Yeah, it's like you are not needed.
Yeah.
Like that's really deep. It cuts deep in your whole life. Imagine that. Imagine if you walked
redundant.
You walked over someone in daily life and said, you know what? You are redundant. That's like, what do you say about like an old phone?
Surplus to requirements.
Yeah, you are not needed.
Yeah.
You're not worthy. That cuts deep into like real core beliefs.
Yeah.
So I really had to kind of contend with those words and emotions and feelings about myself in the last kind of 4 or so weeks and interviewing and all that kind of good stuff, which again is another roller coaster to deal with. Turning up and showing your best self like a couple of times a day or on the phone or whatever is like really taxing. And
well, I think you did it very well. I mean, obviously it was a bit more not manic but energetic in terms of like having to figure out and dealing with agents, recruitment agents, and just basically figuring it out, right? And dealing with it. But yeah, it just really brings it back to how no matter what position you're in life, whether you're in a relationship or you're single or you're pondering polyamory, it's like, shit happens and you need to be able to be, well, we'll go back to being grounded, right? To be actually grounded in who you are, what you're about and what your life's about and what's important.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone out there would be like, oh no, I don't have a job, but I'm still going to, I need to continue going on dates, or I can't, or I need to pretend that I got a job still, or whatever, and it's just not conducive or in alignment with reality, and so being grounded in who you are and not caring about what other people think really creates a different way of experiencing life.
Creates freedom for you,
the
freedom of living,
yeah. And actually, because what you said about the anger as well, like what crossed my mind is actually, as you were saying, it was like, man, that I know in a lot of circles, that's like embarrassing. It's like to say, to admit to, I get angry. So I feel it.
Yeah.
It's like, I shouldn't be angry.
Yeah. It comes up for me as well. I was like, I shouldn't get angry.
Yeah. And I was like, he definitely shouldn't have said that on the podcast, but he's said it now, so we'll roll with it. But the truth is as well, and this is something that I really believe in, is like what people deem as society is actually like a medium of all the different ways that you could be. And then there's just like this acceptable wavelength band that we're like, okay, in society, this is acceptable behavior.
Yeah, across the middle.
Outside of that is unacceptable behavior, and for good reason too in some cases, right? But definitely when it comes to like say anger or sadness or you're crying or whatever, like that's just part of being human. Like I've actually looked this up a couple of times and I never really found a definitive list of what emotions exist, because emotions and feelings get like mishmashed. But there are some basic emotions that we feel, whether it be happiness, sadness, anger, envy, I think is another one, but then you start to get a bit more conceptual. And the thing is, you're going to feel that way. You're going to be angry, like whether, you just got ripped off by someone, or you're going to be sad and feel heart-wrenched if, you lost your job, or you got made redundant and they're using the R word.
And you are redundant.
Yeah, you're now feeling redundant and like redundant. Just keep saying it, like just hammer it. But that, you see, that being grounded and really accepting yourself and being free with who you are and how you feel allows you to, as Dave really adequately put it there earlier, feel free in and moving through these different modes and experiences. And
I think a lot of it else creates the freedom is when you're not telling yourself that you shouldn't feel this way, or you should feel a different way, or you should be a different way. Like, because it's that kind of puts up walls and says, this is, that puts you like, I have to be in that narrow banding of wavelength. And when you say I have to be there, because if you're outside of that, that's no freedom for you, because you're then consistently resisting being there. Like a good example is what we were talking about earlier about the polyamory. Is like, if I tell myself that, being polyamorous is wrong, there's no freedom in not being polyamorous or being polyamorous, right? Because I'm saying it's wrong, so I'm making myself wrong, and by doing it, I'm bad. I'm telling myself that I'm bad. So there's no freedom in, if that's what you're telling yourself. If you're telling yourself, it's okay to be that way or this way or whatever way, there's freedom in that, because then there's choice.
And actually, I mean, on the flip side of that, like being in a relationship, I also find that the right way to be, or the right thing to say or not say, and all this stuff, it still can come up. Like, should I be angry now? Should I be sad? Like, can I express this? Or how should I be? What's the proper way to be? And again, right back to being grounded and being like, well, what's genuine. So what comes to my mind as well is like, I'm not always like confident in what I'm doing or what I'm up to. And actually, being free to discuss that with Chloe is a great freedom, rather than feeling like I mustn't show weakness.
Yes,
I must always occur, like, again,
certainty.
Gladiator, Russell Crowe in The Gladiator, always, and it's just not how life is. And I think this can be a potential real issue, regardless of what status of relationship you're in. But if you're feeling like you have to hide what your truth is with the person that you're with, or you're sharing intimate moments with, then that's gonna like kind of rob you of just being free.
Or just rob you of actually experiencing that moment as it actually is. Like, it's just what it is, instead of, because if you start judging it and saying I should be different, or trying to pretend to be feeling different or being different, then it's like you can't experience what it actually is right there. It's like being in a boat and going, I'm not on a boat, I'm on the land, and forcing yourself to believe you're on land. It's like, well, no, it's going to be tricky for you, because you're actually on a boat, and you're going to experience things as being a boat, and it's just going to create a kind of resistance in you.
And as we share this information, what I'm aware of as well is like, I'm, like Dave said, we're both 35. I'm 35, he's 35. And it's taken us this amount of time to learn to, I like to use the word, like unfold, like to realize and come to these this level of awareness for ourselves. And because what's also obvious to me as well is like, as a younger man, or as a younger human in general, there's just some things you just don't realize, right? And we put a lot of emphasis on what others have told us, because when you're really young, your parents or whomsoever is raising you, the wolves, they dictate how reality is for our own safety. But then as time goes on, like, there's a necessity to move into and learn for yourself, like what's important, what you need to do, and how to be. And over that time, emotions, how you express yourself, what you communicate, what you say, that's an essential part of being human, is to realize for yourself what you can and can't do, not what you should and shouldn't, but right for yourself to be grounded in that. And I'm realizing, as we're saying all of this, like, what we're sharing with you is like, we're looking back here and we're saying this is what we've gone through, and this is where we're at now, and what it makes available to us in our lives by living this way. And so if you were to take on board a few of these concepts and to realize that, well, perhaps there's areas where the easiest thing to notice is actually where you're not free, like where you feel like you must do something and there's no reason why other than someone else told you to do that. Then, you're starting to realize that, well, actually there's a limit here that I haven't allowed myself to explore, to look at, and to understand. And maybe it brings up a lot of fear, whether it's to do with your relationship status, maybe it's to do with dating outside of what your culture or familiar beliefs would be, whether it's to do with being polyamory, whatever. It doesn't just have to be around relationships. It could be the job that you're doing, or all sorts of stuff, right? So take it from us, like, it's not something you're just going to switch on and you're like, now I'm completely free, but rather it's a progression. And there'll always be areas of your life that you don't necessarily, well, not always, depending on what path you take, there'll be times in your life where there's some things you don't feel free with. Like, there's things in my life that I don't necessarily feel that free with, and that's just, but I'm able to kind of have the awareness to kind of stop and go, look what I'm doing there. Like, it's something that I try and do more and more now, is stop and observe myself and how I'm feeling about things and what come up
what comes up for me.
Some advanced level.
Yeah, in like certain instances, I'm like, and I'm trying to have that feedback loop being shorter and shorter to sometimes I say something or someone says something to me, then I feel a certain way, then I respond. And then maybe sometimes 5 minutes later, I go, oh yeah, I didn't really think about what I said. I responded out of this old concern that I have about myself or whatever. And sometimes I will even have that conversation with someone and be like, I really realized when you said that to me, it triggered this kind of like me being frightened or worried that you would judge me. When actually all you said was your opinion. And it starts to have that effect on me that feedback loop is shortening my awareness to certain stimuli happens instantly or very close to instantly, instead of, realizing weeks later when things have troubled me or I haven't responded like authentically, like from myself.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I think we've covered some really cool ground there. I mean, we started off with just vulnerably sharing where we're really at with our own journeys, and also just to add to what David said there as well, like there's never ending. Like there's always something else to learn, and I think that's the beauty of life. Like neither Dave and I knowingly have any children, and I imagine that's a whole nother chapter as well of learnings and whatnot to go through, which we have no experience on that, hence why we don't talk about it. But it definitely is just another one of those things that it's not. Nothing's a given. Nothing. The way I feel about life these days is nothing is ever quite as you imagined it would be. Even if you get exactly what you want, it never came about the way you thought it would or whatever. Life has its own magical way of doing things. And so being grounded in who you are is really important skill and attribute to develop.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like we've covered a lot there.
Yeah, so just to recap then, we spoke about our respective relationship statuses, where we're at, what concerns us, what we feel happens in general in relationships and life and dating and romance, and how it's actually just, this has been a very simple episode, how it actually is really important to be able to follow your own intuition, your own authority, and to discover who you are and understand yourself to a deep level, emotionally and physically, and what you want and desire out of life, so that you can be grounded in that. And that's an ongoing game. There isn't this, like, I don't feel like this is just one thing. As life continues, you just experience different things, and it's as you go. Maybe you decide to be a painter. Maybe I saw on this TV show, this guy converted like a water tower into like a house, and I'm like, well, there's no way when he was like 5 was he going, I want to convert water tower into houses. It's just something he came across and he felt inspired to do. And that's it. That being grounded in what you want and what you desire, and then living from that space.
Yeah, beautiful.
So yeah, guys, as per usual, if you want to message us, you can reach us at hello@authenticdatingseries.com. But the best place is on our Instagram, where we've been posting some really cool content. I say that speaking on my own behalf as well. I've been posting a lot more longer descriptions. Really been enjoying that as well, getting into some longer writing pieces and doing more stories. And we actually have a WhatsApp group now as well. So if you're interested in joining, the WhatsApp group is all about supporting men in their authentic man journeys. And so if you want to be added to that, what you need to do is send us a message with your number. Yeah, name, number. And then we can add you to the group. So what we're trying to create there is a group of men who want to be living kind of authentically, and that way you can kind of talk to us directly. And some of the other guys are in there. We're based in London. You're all over the world. You're probably listening to us in Japan right now because you're so cool. So but you can reach us via WhatsApp. And is there anything else, Dave? And our meetup as well. I think we're probably going to run some more meetups soon. If you are in London. Yeah, if you are in London, like search meetup. If you just search Authentic Dating Series, you'll find our meetup. Go and join, get your friends to join and all that good stuff. And then we can meet up in person and talk life and dating and love and relationships. Yeah, we'll be covering a whole range of topics around relationships and life. Yeah, and I guess the other thing is, we said at the beginning of the episode, we're going to be winding down season 1 with the idea of coming back with a kind of a new energy and maybe some new guests, some high profile guests as well for season 2. Really got a couple of lined up already.
And then hopefully we'll be putting on a little event soon as well for guys out there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, lots to come.
A lot
to come. I had to let that all out,
Yeah. Cool, guys. Well, it's been fun, and we'll catch you next week.
Great. Ciao.